Touch behind the ear, that's it. A 5-second gesture capable of triggering an internal mechanism your body has never stopped carrying. It just forgot how to use it. And this isn't theory. It's vibrational science. It was through the hidden teachings of Thoth that we discovered the existence of this point. A precise spot between the skull and the neck, capable of interrupting survival mode and instantly activating self-healing mode. This point exists. It's active in you right now, but most people will never know how to access it because it's been silenced for centuries, ignored by traditional medicine, hidden in the backstage of your own nervous system. And the most shocking part? You can activate it today, right now, with 2 fingers and a specific breath. And at the end of this video, I'm going to guide you exactly through this process, step by step, in less than 17 seconds. But first, you need to understand what really happens inside you when this point is touched with awareness. Because it's not just relaxation, it's cellular transformation, it's vibrational shift, it's full-body reprogramming with no advanced technique, no guru, no medication. Stay until the end, because what you're about to learn is what entire civilizations protected as an absolute secret for millennia. And it all starts with a touch behind the ear. Your whole life, you've been trained to believe your body is a machine. A biological mechanism made to function, produce, consume, get sick, and be fixed. That's what you were taught, that the body is a sum of parts: heart, lungs, brain, bones, muscles, as if everything were separate, mechanical, cold. But this view isn't natural. It was built, programmed, inserted into you by a system that profits when you disconnect from your own temple. Yes, because your body is not a machine. Your body is a temple encoded with vibrational intelligence, a living architecture where each part carries a frequency, where every zone of your body, from skin to bone, from blood to energy field, can be activated to access deeper levels of perception. The body is not the end, it's the portal. In the mystery schools that existed long before history books admit, this knowledge was passed only among initiates, people prepared to understand what common eyes could not see. And according to the records left by Thoth, the body you now inhabit was built with specific access zones, vibrational patterns, gates, seals, interfaces between worlds, just like a system of sacred codes printed into flesh. These points, scattered throughout the body, aren't mystical in a vague sense. They're real, measurable by those who have the eyes to see. They are zones of convergence between the physical and subtle planes. And one of these points is where almost no one pays attention: behind the ear. A place that seems insignificant but acts as a vibrational key when touched the right way. The alchemists called this area the Gate of Withdrawal, not by chance, because it's precisely at this point that consciousness begins to retreat from alert mode and draw inward, like an internal deceleration button. When touched with the right intention and rhythm, this point sends a silent signal to the nervous system: you're safe now. The danger has passed. You can rest. You can restore. This isn't a concept, it's a physiological response. The body starts to turn off survival mode. The heart slows down, muscle tension decreases, breathing deepens. But the most important part isn't what happens physically. It's what starts to happen vibrationally. Because when the body feels safe, it creates space for energy to flow, and this energy isn't random. It's the force of regeneration. It's in that moment the body stops just functioning and starts transmuting, because everything that once felt blocked, distant, or unreachable now begins to respond. As if the internal doors, once jammed by effort, fear, and the urgency to protect, simply unlocked, not by force, but by resonance. Because what activates the subtle body isn't strength, it's the vibrational quality of the gesture. And in that gesture, something primal manifests: presence. 2 fingers, nothing more than that. But not rushed fingers, nor technical, nor disconnected. Fingers that touch like someone listening. That rest on the point behind the ear with the delicacy of someone who knows they're touching a veil between dimensions. The skin responds, but not just with sensations. It vibrates as if saying, "I recognize this call." The pressure doesn't need to be strong, it needs to be alive. Because what moves the field isn't the density of the touch, but the vibration of the consciousness that comes with it. It's as if you were telling the body, without words, "I'm here. I've stopped. I won't run from myself anymore." And in that instant, the nervous system listens. It listens with the depth of someone who's been waiting for this for decades. The vagus nerve, that nearly invisible filament that runs the full length of the body, from brain to gut, is the one that responds most to this gesture. It's like a silent guardian of your physiology. It decides, moment by moment, whether you're in attack or rest mode. It controls the openness of your heart, the flow of your digestion, the quality of your sleep, the depth of your breath. But it doesn't respond to mental commands. It responds to vibration. And that's why the touch behind the ear is so powerful. Because this point, exactly at the curve between the skull and the neck, is the most accessible gateway to enter into direct dialogue with the vagus nerve. And when that dialogue happens, something shifts deeply. The survival response begins to slow. The body stops sending alert signals. The mind stops anticipating danger. The chest opens, breathing finds rhythm, and a new state settles in. A state that doesn't need to be maintained with effort. It simply happens. This state is called the dominant parasympathetic state, and it is the biological key to self-healing. It's in this state that the body activates its repair intelligence, that the immune system organizes, that hormones balance, that the brain clears out built-up waste. It's in this quiet space that vitality returns without being pushed. It emerges, as if it had always been there, just waiting for permission. But that permission doesn't come from words, or from positive thinking. It comes from the vibration carried by the gesture. And that's what Thoth meant when he wrote, in symbolic language, that the skin is an altar and the gesture is the offering. Conscious touch, done with surrender, transforms the body into a temple, and a temple doesn't open with haste. It opens with reverence. Reverence changes everything. It's the opposite of mechanical technique. It's the opposite of control. It's born from listening to the moment, listening to your own body, because every time you touch this point with truth, the body responds with truth. And that truth isn't verbal, it's vibrational. It's a kind of language that exists only between the silence of the gesture and the wisdom that lives in the cells. And then, in that space of listening, the body begins to remember. Not remember like retrieving a memory from the past, but remember like awakening a forgotten program, an ancient knowing inscribed in your very biological code that says you were created to heal. And that memory doesn't come as a thought, it comes as peace, a peace that doesn't depend on circumstances, that isn't shaken by external noise, that doesn't need explanation. It just arrives. And when it arrives, the body stops fighting, stops running, stops protecting itself. It begins to trust. And in that moment, healing is no longer a possibility. It becomes a reality vibrating through your entire field. Because now it's no longer a concept, no longer an intuition, no longer a belief floating between pretty words. Now it's real, present, felt in the body like a pulse coming from within and radiating as calm, steady, silent warmth. It's as if the skin knows, as if the bones are smiling, as if every cell is finally hearing something it's been waiting for a very long time. And that listening doesn't come from the mind. It comes from a physical, concrete point, positioned exactly where the skull meets the top of the neck, the mastoid process. This small, bony arch, almost imperceptible to the naked eye, hides more than just anatomy. It holds a gateway, a kind of hinge between the physical and the subtle. Science named it without understanding it, as it often does, mastoid process. But the initiates of the ancient temples of Egypt, Tibet, Chaldea, and Kemet knew that there was a seal there. A point of vibrational listening between the outer world and the secret commands of the spiritual body. It's right there that the vagus nerve, that silent thread connecting the brain, lungs, heart, and intestines, can be accessed directly, without cuts, without meds, without instruments, with 2 fingers, with conscious breathing, with full attention. Just let your fingers rest there gently, with an intention that seeks nothing but allows everything. And wait. Because this point responds to a language the mind doesn't understand, but the spirit has known since birth: presence. Presence is the language of the subtle body. And when you arrive at that point with it, without rushing, without tension, something happens. It's not an intense sensation or an obvious chill. It's deeper than that. It's like the whole body makes an internal gesture of relief, like an invisible structure made of alertness and defense crumbles silently. And in place of the wall, a clearing appears, a clean, safe, sacred vibrational space. This gesture doesn't just trigger a neurological response, it awakens a cellular memory. It sends a signal to the autonomic systems, as if saying, "You're not at war anymore." And the body, which for so long has operated in silent tension, begins to reorganize. Glands modulate their hormones with more balance, heartbeats sync with breath, circulation harmonizes, digestion flows. But more than that, the field around you starts to expand. Because this point, beyond direct connection with the vagus nerve, also works as a vibrational antenna. It picks up the emotional intention behind the touch. If the gesture is mechanical, the system won't open. If it's anxious, it protects itself. But if it's present, it blooms. It's an emotional, energetic, and spiritual receptor that only responds to internal truth. It's the body saying, "Don't touch me with fear, touch me with soul." Thoth taught, in records left encoded in geometric patterns on stones and oracular texts, that this point was one of the 7 seals of silence, vibrational gateways that, when accessed, quieted the inner noise and reactivated the body's natural wisdom. Because he knew that the loudest noise that makes humans sick doesn't come from outside, it comes from the unresolved conflict inside. This specific seal, positioned behind the ear, when touched with reverence, silences that noise. And the silence it creates is not the absence of sound, it's the full presence of being. And that silence is fertile. It's not empty, it's full of codes that start moving, like an electric and invisible dance beginning to happen within the energetic field. Because when the point is activated, it doesn't just affect the nerve, it resonates with the body's subtle mesh. It reorganizes frequencies. It sends a signal that echoes through the entire vibrational structure, touching glands, awakening channels, lighting up energy pathways that were dormant when. That's the moment when self-healing no longer needs to be chased. It just happens, not through effort, but because the body got the permission it was waiting for, the internal sign that it's safe to let its guard down. And with that release, everything starts returning to its original place. Vibration rises, consciousness stabilizes, and the field organizes itself with a precision no external technique could ever induce. And when that realignment begins, something even deeper reveals itself, something the ancients carefully kept hidden and that now begins to peek through the layers of your awareness. When the touch finds the point, there's no sound, but something echoes inside as if the inner walls of the body recognize a call. It's not just a gesture, not just contact. It's a vibrational invocation. And the point responds, not with words or images, but with a stillness so dense, so alive, it feels like it fills every empty space inside the body from the inside out. This silence that arises is not a lack of noise. It's presence in its purest form. A presence that doesn't impose, but settles. As if the body itself were saying, "Now I can rest in myself." This rest doesn't come from exhaustion. It comes from release, as if every cell had been on high alert for years, decades, and finally received permission to let go. The tension that lived in your shoulders, your jaw, your chest, dissolves without you needing to think about it. It's like the body, by instinct, recognizes what's safe, not out there, but in here. The point touched doesn't just ease muscles or calm the mind. It reveals a forgotten dwelling, the inner safe space, a refuge that doesn't depend on the world being in order, a silence that doesn't demand anything to change. It just is. In that moment, there's no more effort, no control. The body no longer tries to hold a certain image, a posture, a performance. It simply surrenders, not like giving up, but like finally finding rest. A breath rises from the belly, deep, involuntary, as if the soul, at last, is breathing too. And it's exactly at this point, behind the ear, so discreet, so overlooked in daily life, that the most ancient spiritual traditions identified a secret. In manuscripts preserved by initiatory orders and in chants whispered in forgotten languages, it was called the ear of the soul, not by accident. It was understood as a point of sacred listening, a channel where the body hears the soul and the soul hears the body, a silent crossroads between the visible and the invisible. There, no explanation fits. There, you don't think about what you feel, you simply feel. It's the place where the mind can't go, but where consciousness awakens. The Gnostics saw this point as the place of divine surrender, the exact moment when the ego releases control and the spirit takes the wheel. The Egyptians, masters of vibrational anatomy, taught that this point was one of the 7 minor portals that, when activated with precision, allowed transit between worlds. And Thoth, in the emerald tablets and writings about Atlantean initiations, detailed the use of this point as direct access to the portals of Amenti, not a geographic location, but a state of consciousness where time folds and the body becomes a bridge. But what makes it all even more revealing is that this point isn't just about quieting what bothers, it also awakens what sleeps. Inside, it lies a memory that doesn't belong to your biography, but to your original self. A formless vibration, but with a pulse. Without language, but full of meaning. This memory doesn't bring answers. It brings a knowing with no questions. When activated, it lights up what was asleep, a presence so intimate, so clear, that you no longer need to search outside. Because now, finally, you've come back to yourself. And when that happens, the body no longer acts out of impulse. It responds with direction. Movements become more precise, decisions lighter, walking more grounded. As if every cell received a map, an inner guidance that doesn't come from the rational mind, but from vibrational alignment. You begin to move not out of habit or obligation, but in coherence with what pulses inside. It's as if the soul has, at last, returned to fully inhabit the body, not as a guest, but as its rightful resident. And in that state, Even silence has a voice that guides, supports, illuminates. All from a simple touch, on a point that's always been there, waiting to be remembered. Everything starts to slow down inside you, but it's not an empty slowness. It's an intelligent, lucid deceleration, full of presence. It's like time rearranges itself around you, no longer as a rushed tyrant, but as a calm river, respecting your internal rhythm. Your heartbeat seems to sync with something greater. Your breath becomes wider, more rhythmic, more meaningful. And in that space, between a touch and a breath, a new kind of communication begins to emerge, silent, but deeply real. This point behind the ear, so often ignored, now responds with more clarity. But it doesn't just respond to touch. It responds to what's behind the touch, to intention, to your inner state, to the quality of your presence. It's not the finger that activates the point, it's how you breathe while you touch it. The conversation happens between the air you draw in and the gesture that rests. And when that conversation is honest, a third thing is born. A vibrational phenomenon the ancients called the etheric pulse. The etheric pulse has no sound, no visible shape, but it's as real as the blood flowing through your veins. It's born in the space between the gesture and the breath. It's the result of a rare synchronicity, when the body is not just repeating a technique, but truly inhabiting the moment. This subtle vibration acts like an ancient password, a vibrational code that reactivates regions of your field that have been dormant since before your conscious memory, and when it wakes up, nothing stays the same. To let this pulse emerge, you don't need to memorize steps. You just need to remember what it feels like to be present. Close your eyes. Inhale slowly and deeply, counting to 4. Bring 2 fingers of your right hand to the point behind your ear. Let them touch the skin as if they were speaking to it, with gentleness, with reverence. Then exhale, counting to 6, and stay. Don't interrupt. Allow. Because it's in that staying that the field begins to speak to you, not with words, but with sensation. In that moment, the touch stops being a touch. It becomes a code, a vibrational language the body understands perfectly without needing translation. It's as if each cell, upon hearing that signal, lets out a yes, as if something tells the whole system, it's safe to return, safe to remember, safe to reorganize. Shoulders drop, jaw relaxes, internal rhythm aligns, heartbeats slow down, not by effort, but by resonance. The lymphatic, nervous, and endocrine systems start working like one choir, in tune. And in that choir, the body regenerates. But the most surprising thing happens around you. The energy field, which once was limited to your skin, begins to expand. It moves beyond the edges of your physical body. It goes further. And with it, your perception of the environment also shifts. You feel the air differently, denser, softer, closer to a vibrational fabric that wraps around everything. You feel like you've stepped into a different kind of space, a space where everything seems to breathe with you. This isn't imagination. This is ether. The subtle substance the ancients said connects everything that exists. Thoth called this state the Aetheric Remembrance, not because something new was being created, but because something ancient was being remembered. The etheric pulse is the body's memory of its luminous origin. It awakens records that had been buried under haste, fear, trauma, and disconnection from the moment. Records from when the body knew how to heal itself, align itself, guide itself. You're not forcing anything. You're simply becoming who you were before forgetting. And when this state settles in, the body changes. But more than muscles, hormones, or organs, there's a subtle and extremely powerful change happening on another level. An invisible realignment begins to vibrate deep in your energetic field, A kind of internal spiral reorganizes, and this reorganization starts to trigger a forgotten key, a key that awakens something many sense but few truly understand. And it's at this point, when the field begins to respond, that the invisible becomes tangible, because what happens here goes far beyond sensation, beyond relief, relaxation, or well-being. What begins to move with this gesture is the deepest structure of your existence, your original vibrational code. For centuries, it was believed that DNA was just a biological sequence, a chemical construction that defined the body, physical traits, inherited diseases. But the ancients already knew what modern science is only now beginning to admit. DNA is not just matter. It's an antenna, a living spiral of light and sound, a transmitter of frequency, and certain parts of it only activate when touched by a specific vibration. This point behind the ear is one of those frequencies. When you activate it the right way, with presence, breath, and silence, it triggers an electrical reverberation so precise that the DNA responds. It vibrates, it resonates. It aligns with an energetic matrix that was already imprinted in you before your physical form even existed. It's like pressing a hidden button inside an ancient mechanism, a button that says, restart, restore, remember. And what's remembered isn't an ordinary memory. It's a vibrational identity that was buried under fear, trauma, and outside programming. It's like you had a locked library inside you, and that touch finds the forgotten golden key. This key isn't symbolic. It's energetic. It's as if the gesture breaks the block between the body and the soul's original field. Parts of your bioenergetic field that had been asleep begin to reactivate. As if you started operating in a more integrated, more lucid, more alive version of yourself. And what happens when this activates is more powerful than any external method. The soul starts trusting the body again. Yes. Because while the body is at war, the soul retreats. It protects itself. It steps back, quietly. Not because it rejects the body, but because it finds no room to express itself. But when this point is activated and the field reorganizes, the soul feels it. And it comes back. It takes up space again. It breathes with the body. It vibrates with the flesh. And that communion is what the ancients called healing. It's not the end of a symptom. It's the reunion with the origin, the moment the being integrates again with its essence, where the body stops resisting and starts collaborating, where the whole system stops fighting itself and begins to flow with wholeness. But this reconnection, no matter how subtle it seems, begins to cause a shift that goes beyond the skin, beyond the nervous system, beyond the electromagnetic field. Something deeper, something ancestral, begins to be released. And when this ancestral release begins to happen, a new level of sensitivity gets activated. You start to realize the gesture is no longer just a practice. It becomes a ritual, and like every true ritual, it has its own timing, a sacred moment, a specific instant when the veil between worlds gets thinner. That moment happens between the end of the day and the beginning of the night. The ancients called this moment the Gate of Silence. It's when the sun hasn't completely set, but night is already touching the air. Not day, not night. It's a threshold, an energetic gap where the body stops identifying with raw matter and opens to the subtle planes. That's where everything gets more powerful. Touching the point behind the ear at this exact moment, right before lying down, turns the gesture into a signal, not just to the body, but to the invisible field around you. It says, the watch is over. The defense cycle has ended. It's now safe to cross. But this crossing isn't physical. It happens in the space of consciousness. Because during sleep, The body rests, but the soul moves. And if the body is in resonance with the right frequency, that soul can move with direction. It can visit other layers of the self. It can access answers, healings, visions, and messages that otherwise would stay hidden. The initiates in Thoth's practices knew this. And that's why this gesture wasn't done randomly. It was part of a preparation, a silent ceremony, a vibrational invitation for the release of the Ka, the energy body. When this release happens consciously, dreams are no longer just random images. They become portals, pathways of revelation. No wonder the deepest, most symbolic dreams usually happen when the body is in a state of total surrender. But what almost no one realizes is that this state doesn't happen by chance. It can be cultivated. And the gesture behind the ear, when done at this twilight threshold, is like a secret password that opens that state. It prepares the field. It tells the soul that everything is ready, and as it's repeated, night after night, with respect, with presence, the body begins to understand. It recognizes the gesture as a transition marker. It learns that from that moment on, the healing mode is activated, even during sleep. And the most fascinating part is that this learning doesn't fade. It builds. It creates memory, a memory that, over time, completely transforms how the body experiences the night. But this vibrational buildup goes beyond sleep. It starts reflecting in your waking state, in the way you wake up, in how you feel the world around you, because the body that learns to heal at night begins to transform during the day too. And when the body learns, something magical happens. It starts to remember, but not remembering with the mind, remembering through its own vibration, remembering an original state where there was no tension, no fear, no urgency to survive. A state where the body simply flowed with life, like a river follows its course without needing to be pushed. At first, you guide the gesture. You breathe, touch, feel. You repeat it with presence. But there comes a moment, and it comes without warning, when the body anticipates the gesture. It already knows what's coming. It recognizes the intention before the touch, and in that moment, the body starts responding on its own. What once required practice now happens as a reflex. The nervous system, once stuck in reactive mode, starts operating on another frequency. Slower, wider, more coherent. You notice it in the little things. Sleep gets deeper. Tensions disappear effortlessly. You wake up with a light chest, like something was removed overnight. Something that didn't need to be there anymore. And then you realize the gesture is no longer needed to generate the state because the body has already entered that field. It already recognizes that vibration as its new normal, and that, by itself, is already healing. Self-healing stops being an intention and becomes a natural movement, invisible, silent, without command, without control, like a song that keeps playing even after the conductor falls silent. Thoth described this phenomenon as the moment the gesture becomes pulse, when the practice stops being external and becomes internal, a living rhythm that pulses in the field even when you're unaware. It's the body coming into alignment with the soul's beat. That's the point when healing is no longer a process. It becomes a frequency, permanent, integrated, fluid. You're no longer trying to heal. You're being healed simply by existing in tune with your essence. And this tuning begins to expand. It goes beyond the limits of your skin. It influences the environment. People around you feel it. They can't explain it, but something shifts in your presence. Your energy starts to emit a new kind of signal, more stable, cleaner, more alive. Because you've finally entered the original rhythm of creation, not as an effort, but as a memory taking shape, as if the life that always wanted to bloom inside you now had space to breathe. And when this new frequency stabilizes, the entire field reconfigures to protect that harmony. It's in that silence that asks for no explanations, in that space between one breath and the next, that something irreversible happens. The body, once conditioned to react, to defend, to compensate for imbalance, crosses a point of no return. There's no sound, no light, no spectacle. But there's an invisible shift, as if the entire inner mechanism surrendered to a rhythm older than time itself. It's like crossing a vibrational threshold that can't be seen, only felt. That point behind the ear, which once required intention and precision, now pulses on its own, like it woke up from a deep sleep. It's no longer a button being pressed. It's a living seal in constant resonance with the spirit's matrix. It no longer responds only to the touch of your fingers, but to the quality of your presence. And the more you quiet down, the more it sings. The more you listen within, the more it shines on the outside. The trying fades away. The expectation dissolves. The body organizes itself through resonance, like a choir tuned to a song only it can recognize. The systems align. The brain slows down, the heart softens. The etheric field, which once felt like a distant veil, now wraps every atom in mathematical precision and sacred beauty. That point is no longer a place on the body. It becomes a symbol. A vibrational marker that records the passage from effort to flow, from searching to finding. The body is no longer trying to heal. It now recognizes itself as part of the very healing field of creation. And that remembrance isn't intellectual, it's visceral, it's cellular, it's vibrational. In this state, energy doesn't just flow through meridians, it radiates like a star from the inside out. Every cell begins to emit a different signature, cleaner, more ordered, more coherent with what the ancients called the true body. And when that happens, what was fragmented becomes whole. What was heavy dissolves. What was doubt transforms into presence. This is where spirit returns, not as a separate entity, not as something to summon, but as a consciousness resting on every atom, with gentleness, with love, with full clarity. That return is what the ancient texts called the soul's settling. It's not a dramatic mystical event. It's like the landing of a sacred bird, light, almost imperceptible, but absolutely real. It's in that moment that the body whispers, "I remember myself." Not a memory from the past, but a memory from before time. An inner knowing that was never taught but has always been latent. And when that awakens, the body stops being biology and becomes altar. A silent altar, where every cell is a vow of presence and every breath is an offering to life. Nothing else needs to be done, because the field has already been restored. The vibration has been recorded into the subtle fabric of your being. It doesn't matter what happens outside. This frequency stays. It no longer depends on words, rituals, or effort. It is. And because it is, it radiates, it guides, it transforms, without needing to interfere, fix, or control. The technique served its purpose, but now the body vibrates on its own. It remembers its original function, to be a living bridge between the visible and the invisible worlds. And when that bridge is steady, consciousness can cross freely. There is no more separation between spirit and flesh, between matter and light. There is only unity. And that unity no longer needs to be searched for. It has become you. The vibration that once seemed contained, restricted to the intimate space of your body, now flows past all borders. It's no longer limited to the skin, the organs, the bones. It overflows, as if each breath were a silent tide carrying your frequency outward. The air around you begins to carry your signature, and that signature is felt even if no one can explain what changed. You walk into a room and something shifts. No words, no gestures, no explicit intention. People relax. Some smile without realizing it. Others stop looking at their phones without knowing why. A silence settles. Not the silence of no noise, but of true presence. As if your simple arrival told everyone, "You're safe now." It's almost imperceptible, but absolutely real. It's not about charisma. It's not hypnosis. It's not a supernatural gift. It's pure coherent vibration. The bioelectric field around you, once unstable, fractured by emotional tensions, now pulses in a steady rhythm. And that orderly rhythm communicates with the world. It touches the subtle fields of those nearby. It speaks to the energy of the space. It reconnects the environment to presence. This expansion doesn't come from effort. It comes from consistency, from a silent practice, repeated with reverence. The touch behind the ear, which once seemed like a simple gesture, now reveals itself as a resonance trigger, a vibrational command that awakened what had always been asleep, the golden shield. A luminous, pulsing field that forms around those who walk with their souls settled in their body. This shield doesn't protect by separating, it integrates. It dissolves the need for defense, because where it is, fear has no function. It's as if it says to everything around, there is no threat here. And the most amazing part? It transmits exactly what you vibrate. If you vibrate truth, the field transmits truth. If you vibrate serenity, the field holds peace. This field doesn't stay confined to your body. It touches everyone who crosses your path, not with shock, but with softness. It doesn't impose. It welcomes. And little by little, it reorganizes everything around. Chaotic spaces become neutral. Aggressive conversations dissolve before they start. Children come to you like they've always known you. Animals lie near you like they're home. You don't need to ask for attention. It just naturally turns toward you. This happens because your body of light, activated by a stable vibration, begins to generate coherent fields that sync with other frequencies. It emits an invisible order that reorganizes energetic messes. No noise, no impact, no words. Like a perfectly tuned instrument that resonates harmony in a space where everything seemed off-key. You no longer need to speak to comfort someone. A glance is enough. Your breath already radiates. Your presence already transmits. Your existence now carries a silent power to inspire other bodies to remember themselves. Not because you want to, but because you are the living reminder that it's possible to live in peace. This inner coherence you've stabilized through conscious gesture, vibrational listening, and devotional practice now echoes like an invisible but tangible wave. And this wave doesn't end. It spreads. It echoes. It finds who needs it. It touches without touching. It heals without healing. The ancients called this state living Heka, the creative word in silent form. A force that transforms everything without moving anything. Modern medicine, still crawling toward understanding this phenomenon, is beginning to call it heart coherence, toroidal field, bioresonance. But the initiates already knew. It's a soul that's returned to its rightful place, a presence that has claimed the body as its temple and now vibrates out into the world. And when that vibration stabilizes, it becomes permanent. It no longer depends on technique. It doesn't need focus anymore. It is your revealed nature, and that nature, once recognized, is noticed by everyone. A simple gesture from you can dissolve tension. A silence from you can open space for truth. A presence from you can anchor healing for an entire room. The most incredible part? You're not doing it. You're not trying. You're not forcing. You're simply being. And it's in that simple being that the extraordinary shows up. Because a body aligned with the soul doesn't need to act to transform. It just exists. And that alone changes everything. The vibration, now stabilized within you, not only heals, but prepares the ground for the rebirth of a forgotten power. When the inner field reaches coherence, there's no longer any need for correction. Now it's time for expansion. And that's when the practice changes nature. The gesture that once calmed inner storms now lights the spark of the inner sun. In the first light of dawn, while the world is still dozing, there's a sacred moment when the body is between two states, not fully awake, but no longer asleep. It's in that in-between space that the touch behind the ear becomes a catalyst of vital force. But it's not enough to touch mechanically. It takes full intention, a precise touch with two fingers, firm and serene, anchored by a breath that doesn't just oxygenate, but invokes light itself. The inhale doesn't happen just through the nose, but through the top of the head, as if the entire sky were being absorbed into your energy field. This is solar breathing. It's not a metaphor, it's a real energetic practice. As you inhale slowly, visualizing a golden column of light descending from the crown to the base of your spine, you create an inner resonance tube. And when you press the mastoid point at that exact moment, it's like flipping a secret switch. The sensation might be subtle, a gentle warmth, a chill, a tingling, but what it activates is massive, an etheric crystal lodged in the subtle layers of the body that acts as a receiver of cosmic fire. The initiates of the Temple of On called this the touch of serpent fire. Because this gesture, when aligned with sunrise, awakens the fiery spiral, an energy current that moves in ascending waves from the base of the spine to the top of the head. It's the same force the Vedas called Kundalini, the Taoists called Qi, and the Egyptian masters named Sekhem, the living breath that animates the universe. This energy isn't just physical vitality, it's awakened consciousness, a fire that reveals, illuminates, purifies, without destroying. There's no explosion, there's clarity. You feel your body more clearly, as if your feet had roots and your head was the sky itself. Your senses sharpen, intuition blooms, decisions lose the weight of doubt. Breathing becomes sharp like lightning. Every movement has direction. Every silence has presence. Your skin glows. Your gaze becomes more penetrating, but not aggressive, just deeply aware. Your hands warm naturally, as if ready to create, to heal, to transform. Your feet step firmly, as if the ground is listening to you. There's a kind of sacred electricity running through you, but without agitation, a state of calm alertness, of silent power. You realize you're not just present anymore. You're awake. The touch behind the ear has become a rite, and this rite, repeated at each dawn, tunes your body like an instrument. You align your frequency with the pulse of the universe. The gesture becomes a code. The breath becomes a portal. The body, once a container for pain, now vibrates as an extension of the primordial light. This awakening reveals itself in how you move. You no longer walk to get somewhere. You walk to radiate. Your voice is no longer just sound. It's a pulse. Your words carry a quality that doesn't come from the mind, but from the fire within them. Your touch leaves a vibrational imprint, and then your gaze becomes total presence. You don't push the world, you influence it with the force of your vibration. All of this comes from within, from a place that isn't conquered, but activated. And the key was always simple: a gesture, a touch. A breath done with true intention at the break of day. That simplicity is what makes the process sacred. Because the sacred was never about complexity, it was always about total presence. And when that presence meets the light of dawn, the body remembers its original function, to be a temple of the vital fire that pulses through every galaxy. And it all began with the humblest gesture, 2 fingers behind the ear at the right moment, with a silent heart and an awakened spirit. This silent fire that now lives in you, discreet and constant like an ember that never goes out, isn't limited to the physical realm. It crosses what the eyes can't see, clearing the way for a perception that's always been there but buried beneath mental noise, urgency, and the heavy layers of daily survival. Over time, something in you changes. The world is no longer just what's seen. It becomes what's felt, what's sensed, what's recognized without a word. You begin to notice small daily miracles, but not as something extraordinary, more like something natural, inevitable. Like when you wake from a dream and the sensation in your body is as vivid as a memory from yesterday. It doesn't feel like just a dream. It feels like instruction, like your soul just returned from a place where everything was clearer. Or when you walk into a room and the air gives you signals before your eyes do. A slight tension in the gut, a tingling at the neck, a sudden expansion in the chest. The body starts speaking before the mind interprets. And the most striking thing, when someone comes near and you feel, without analyzing, without thinking, that something's off. That no matter how sweet the smile is, there's a dissonance in the frequency. And you trust that. You step back, not out of judgment, but out of vibrational integrity. These perceptions aren't superstition, they're refined reading of a field that's now active. The prolonged activation of the point behind the ear, once just a healing key, now reveals its true nature. It's an antenna. A sharp receiver capable of decoding frequencies the ordinary mind can't even register, as if the subtle layers of the skin had been unfolded and directly linked to the core of your heart and the luminous geometry of the pineal gland. Science is beginning to call this electrosensitivity. The ancients called it inner vision, the Hermeticists, vibrational perception. The initiatic schools of Kemet, Greece, Atlantis, and even the shamanic lineages of ancient America use this point with reverence. They didn't rush for answers. They sat before the fire, touched the point with their fingers, breathed slowly and in silence. They didn't invoke visions. They became worthy of receiving them. Because they understood that true perception isn't born from mental effort, but from field stability. And when that field stays coherent long enough, something precious awakens. The pineal gland, far beyond its biological function, begins to operate like a spiritual radar. It tunes into non-linear frequencies, catches unspoken truths, recognizes vibrational patterns before they materialize. It's no longer about random intuition. It's refined communication between your awareness and the subtle fields that permeate everything. You begin to hear what no one said, to see nuances no one showed, to perceive energies hidden behind ordinary words. The body becomes a translator between dimensions. Time seems to fold. A phrase you hear connects to something you thought yesterday. A synchronicity hits just when you need it. A number, a melody, an image. Everything seems to talk to you in secret. The veils between worlds start to thin. You feel that the density of matter is just one layer among many. Coincidences stop feeling random. A book opens to the exact page. A message arrives before you ask. A name comes to mind, and the person shows up. None of it feels strange. Because now you recognize it's the field speaking to you, and the vibrational point behind your ear is the translator. This antenna now works both ways. It sends and receives. It transmits healing, but it also listens. You become a conscious channel, not just of internal transformation, but of precise reading of your environment. Intuition becomes wisdom. Sensitivity becomes clarity. Perception becomes direction. You don't need to wait for signs anymore. You decode them in real time. Because now the body doesn't just vibrate, it understands. And in this state, The world reveals itself not as a place to conquer, but as a sacred book unfolding page by page, revealing itself as you learn to see without eyes, hear without ears, and feel with your field. And all of this pulses in the silence of that small touch that always was the key to everything beyond. And then, without you noticing the exact moment, something shifts. There's no fanfare, no feeling of miracle. It's silent, deep, undeniable. The body, once conditioned to react, to survive, to resist, starts to reveal an ancient intelligence that doesn't need to be taught, only remembered. A wisdom that slept beneath layers of urgency, fear, and routine, and it awakens not by the mind's command, but by vibrational permission. The body only rejuvenates when it feels it can, when it no longer needs to defend itself, when the field stabilizes in presence, and the frequency stops being a goal and becomes a home. That return isn't sudden. It's as subtle as the first sunbeam filtering through the window before dawn. The breath deepens without effort, not because you decided to breathe better, but because the nervous system stopped bracing. The eyes rest faster, as if they no longer need to watch the world. Digestion flows easily, without heaviness or sluggishness. The gut, so sensitive to emotional states, starts to work like a calm clock. You wake up naturally, before the alarm, as if your body knows the exact time to return to the world. Fatigue doesn't pile up in heavy layers anymore. It evaporates, and the mind finally quiets down. Not into forced silence, but into natural stillness, like a lake no longer stirred by wind. But the most extraordinary part isn't what gets better. It's what returns, the lightness of childhood, the spontaneous urge to stretch upon waking, the desire to walk with no destination, the sparkle in your eyes you thought was lost, the simple joy of feeling the breeze on your face, the easy laugh, the curiosity sparked by small things, the quiet excitement of being alive. Your memory sharpens, your thoughts get clearer. Time stops feeling like an enemy chasing you. It slows down, it folds, it surrenders. Thoth, in the most mysterious records of ancient Kemet, spoke of regeneration chambers hidden beneath the pyramids, sacred spaces where initiates entered such high vibrational states that the body went into cellular suspension. It wasn't magic, it was vibrational science. In those chambers, biology reorganized. The body structure was invited to remember its original blueprint. The cell wasn't manipulated, it was heard. And in being heard, it aligned with the frequency of origin. These practices required nothing external, just a stable inner field, a vibration held with discipline and reverence. When the field reached deep coherence, biological time bent. Cells stopped aging from fear. DNA began to emit more ordered light patterns. Mitochondria generated energy more efficiently. The lymphatic system became more active, removing toxins with precision. And the most amazing thing, the entire endocrine system started working like a tuned orchestra, balancing hormones autonomously, restoring natural states of inner youth. Today, modern science is beginning to crawl in that direction. Epigenetic researchers already admit that the internal environment shapes gene expression, that emotion, breathing, thought, and magnetic fields directly influence regeneration. Some are starting to measure heart coherence. Others study the electromagnetic reorganization of DNA. But Thoth already knew. Rejuvenation is a result of vibration. When the field stays pure, true time emerges. A non-linear time, a time that listens to the soul, and then the body responds. Wrinkles don't vanish, but they lose their weight. Skin glows like it has more blood and more light. Posture aligns naturally, as if the bones remembered their axis. The eyes light up with a glow that doesn't come from outside. It's not about looking younger. It's about being more whole. The body isn't trying to trick time. It's dancing with eternity. That dance has no age. It doesn't seek appearance. It pulses with authenticity. It's the body in its highest function, a channel of the soul, a mirror of inner light, a living instrument of presence. And in that state, biology is no longer a prison. It's a temple. And time stops being an enemy. It becomes an ally. Because when you vibrate with coherence, you don't race against time. You move with the infinite. If you made it this far, drop a comment saying, "The touch reminded me who I am." That shows me you made it to the end and that you're part of this vibrational journey with me. And if you want to support the channel more directly and help spread more content like this out there, there's a link in the first pinned comment where you can contribute whatever your heart feels. That means a lot to me and to the continuation of this work. But hey, just the fact that you stayed until the end already made a difference. If this video touched you in any way, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Pass this frequency on. Now don't leave just yet. I saved a special piece of content with lots of care. It's right there on the screen. Click now and I'll meet you there. It's going to be powerful.